You've seen it before, right? That famous happiness pie chart, the one that seemed to have it all figured out, telling us exactly what makes us happy. Well, today, we're going to dig into the surprising story behind that chart, straight from the scientists who made it, and see how the whole idea has changed over time. Let's get into it.
But first, let me ask you something. Why is it that the incredible rush you get from a promotion or a new car, or even moving to a city you love, why does it seem to just fade? You get this amazing boost, but then sooner or later, you're kind of right back where you started. This little puzzle is right at the heart of all happiness research. You see, for a long time, the main theory was something called the hedonic treadmill. The idea is basically that we all have a happiness set point, almost like a thermostat in a house. Sure, great things can happen, and terrible things can happen, and the temperature might change for a bit, but eventually, we always drift back to our personal baseline. It's a bit of a downer, really, suggesting our long-term happiness is pretty much out of our control. But then, in 2005, a totally groundbreaking paper came out. It proposed a new way of thinking called the Sustainable Happiness Model. And it was a direct challenge to that old hedonic treadmill idea. It suggested that maybe, just maybe, we have way more control than we ever thought. So here's how this new model broke it down. First, it acknowledged what we already knew from studying twins. It said that about 50%, so half, of the differences in happiness between people comes down to a genetic set point. This part, you're pretty much born with it.
Okay, next up are life circumstances. Stuff like how much money you make, where you live, if you're married, all that stuff. And this is where things got really interesting. The model estimated that these things only account for about 10% of our happiness, just 10%.
Which, of course, brings us to the biggest piece of the pie. The model argued that the rest of it, a whopping 40%, wasn't determined by our genes or our situation at all. Nope, it was determined by our intentional daily activities. The things we consciously choose to do and think, day in and day out. And this idea gave birth to that incredibly famous pie chart. The message was just so powerful and optimistic. A massive chunk of your happiness is totally up for grabs. It meant you could actively go out and work on being happier and actually succeed. I mean, this idea just blew up in the world of positive psychology. But hold on, this raised a huge question. If we're all stuck on this hedonic treadmill, always snapping back to our set point, how could any boost in happiness possibly last? How could you make a positive change that actually sticks around for the long haul? Let's look at this chart. It makes it really clear. You've got person 1 and person 2. See how they both get a nice happiness boost at time 2? But look at person 2. They quickly slide right back down to their baseline. That's the hedonic treadmill right there in action. Person 1, though, they managed to stay up. They've found a way to create a stable, sustained change. So the whole goal of this research was to figure out how can we all be more like person 1? And the model's secret sauce was this key difference between two kinds of changes. A circumstance change is a new fact about your life, like, say you get a big raise. An activity change is a new practice, something that takes effort, like starting to keep a gratitude journal. The theory was simple. We get used to new circumstances really, really fast, but we adapt much more slowly to new dynamic activities. And you know what? The early studies seemed to prove it. In one experiment, people who made an activity change saw their well-being go up and stay up. But the folks who made a circumstance change, they got a smaller boost and then whoop, right back down they went. It was pretty powerful evidence that what you do matters way more for long-term happiness than what you have. But here's the plot twist. After about 15 years of new research, the original scientists actually revisited their own model. Now, they still believe in the core idea, but they now agree that the famous 40% number was, and this is in their own words, likely an overestimate. The effects of our actions are definitely real, but maybe they're a little smaller and a little harder to achieve than everyone first thought. And this led to a really critical insight. The research started showing that for these happiness strategies to actually work, people need two things. First, you need the motivation, the will to actually want to become happier. And second, you need the right strategy, the proper way. You can't just be told to be more grateful. You have to really want it and have a good way to practice it. So this is where the story gets super interesting. That original pie chart wasn't the final answer. It was just the beginning. The thinking behind it has now evolved into 3 more detailed, more actionable models. Let's break them down real quick. First, there's the eudaimonic activity model. This one argues that maybe we shouldn't be chasing happiness directly at all.
Instead, we should focus on things that help us grow as people, build deep connections with others, and contribute to the world. When you do that, happiness tends to just show up as a really nice side effect. Next up is the Hedonic Adaptation Prevention Model. This one gives us a game plan for dealing with those big life changes, like a new marriage or finally buying your dream house. To stop the joy from fading, you have to actively work at it. You have to find new ways to experience it and make a real effort to appreciate and savor it. Basically, don't let the amazing things in your life just become background noise. And finally, we have the Positive Activity Model. And its core message is huge. There is no one-size-fits-all fix for happiness. The absolute key is something called person activity fit. A gratitude journal might be a total game changer for your friend, but you might get way more out of performing acts of kindness. It's all about finding the right practice for your personality, your values, and your life. So, after all that, what does this all mean? What have we really learned about how to get happier and, more importantly, stay happier? Let's boil it all down. The modern recipe for happiness, it turns out, isn't a simple pie chart. It's a practice. It starts with choosing activities that feel real and authentic to you. It's about going after personal growth and connection, not just chasing a quick thrill. And here's the kicker. It takes real, sustained effort. You've got to keep things fresh, find new ways to do things, and actively appreciate the good stuff you already have. So it's not some fixed slice of a pie that you claim. It's more like a fire that you have to intentionally and continuously feed.